Greetings, folks. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of kit bashing from one of the Indomitus Bladeguard, if I remember correctly, or something other than that. Today, I'm going to be making it in a weird sort of corn appreciator. I like the World Eaters, and I don't have a lot of cool looking corn bits except for some iconography and some little pieces here and there. So, we'll see what we can do here. Generally, from the Indomitus box, I have the parts to make the body. I have the shield whoops. I got this shield from a Slaves of Darkness box. A bunch of the little knights there that I actually used as Khorne Berserkers for my Alpha Legion army. A couple of these neat little shields that I just freaking yeeted over there. These little shields are the exact size of the regular Indomitus shields, just not as wide. I'll show you an example real quick. Sorry about the noise. Need to find one of my bits here. My handy dandy bit box. Bit boxes are very important for kit bashing and just general overall use. It's nice to have some sort of storage to store all your parts that are unused, so that way you can sell them off to other people, use them for kit bashes, or when you get more models in the future, you could just use those extra bits for them. So as we see here, here's the regular Indomitus, I'm just going to call them Knights, I can't remember the name, regular Indomitus Knight shield, as we see here, compared to the size of the Slaves of Darkness shield. Now, overlapping the two, they are exactly the same size, as we see here. In fact, if I press it in a little bit and put it under that ridge, they go together very nicely. But I'm not going to do that. I accidentally threw that shield into my Chaos Space Marine box. Gonna have to dig through that. Oh boy! So, now, overall, we're going to begin our overall process of cutting, sanding, and best of all, forming. Now, while I am planning all this in my head, I need to bust out my super glue here for a few pieces that I really want to stay on tightly, because some of these are going to be a little loose fitting. I have my metallic metal fine sander. Really good for just getting rid of all that little muck here and there. And that leaves a nice finish. Have my regular snippers. And a handheld X-Acto knife. Any X-Acto knife can work, but these generally work better because it's almost like you're holding a pencil. Get rid of that. It's like if you're holding a very sharp pencil that if you cut your finger off pretty much if you put it in the right direction. Totally not speaking from personal experience. I almost sliced my finger open completely. Ooh! So, starting things off, we have our base. Screw that base, we don't need that base. We're real men here, we make our own. Actually, no. Oh, whoops. We will keep that base for later. It's almost like we need it for painting. So we have here a regular body. Overall, it matches the whole little Khorne feel already. Lots of skulls, perfect. In this case, we're kind of making like a berserker as a shield warden. So, not sure how that works thematically, but it does. Not feeling this here, but that would be a pain to get rid of, so we'll just keep it there. We could have this be one of the World Eaters that didn't go to Chaos, and were also kind of wiped out because Agron, because Agron don't care about people, and he was angry. That's what happens when Daddy doesn't get his juice. So, after those parts are together, we're just going to squeeze the crap out of them and form it together. We're just going to leave that dry over there. Now here comes a tricky part. So the thing about these Indomitus parts is... Actually, I kind of need that back there. The crazy part about these Indomitus parts is all their pauldrons are built into the actual arm, as you see here. The mold line generally showing you how that works. Problem with that, can't really put a different pauldron on top of it unless if you snip the hell out of it. That's exactly what we're going to do. So, very carefully, I know I'm ruining a really good model that you can't get anymore. How quaint. Just going to scoot all that so I don't mess up here. Now what I'm doing is I'm systematically snipping off the edges and the excess from the pauldron that is already on the left arm. To you, if it was facing this way, that would be right. But generally, if you're looking from the back side of a miniature, that would be their point of view, which is the left side. So we're going to keep all that there, so that way, when we shove our pauldron on, it's going to fit like there, and still have that nice ridge at the bottom that these little blade dudes have. Probably should have done this before I put it together, but meh. Now, I'm going to very, very carefully and precisely here snip it to a point where I can put the pauldron on. We're going to turn it sideways, snip off a little bit, kind of like if you're cutting paper, but these are really sharp plastic shears, and you should, well, shears made for plastic that are made out of very sharp metal. It's almost twice as sharp as an X-Acto knife. We're just going to carefully snip away here, being careful of that ridge so we don't screw it up, as I almost did there. Just keep snipping until we get a general concave fit. Now we're going to layer this on top, see how we're doing here. So far so good. It is a little more narrow on the inside compared to the rest of it, so I think I'm going to just snip a lot of this off. Which I need to be very careful, because I still want the lower edge aquila to manage to still fit onto the miniature itself. Now, all these little plastic bits are flying everywhere. It's going to be a pain trying to find those later in the overall cleanup process. So generally, when you're snipping things, you kind of want to have it face downward. But it's kind of hard to do snipping downward when you can't see where you're snipping. So, pray to Jesus that these don't fly everywhere into your face. Alright. Now that we have most of it snipped off, we will see how it's fitting now. Okay, it's having a better fit. That's good. Good. You just want to cut more off. Now I'll be heading over here with an X-Acto knife and the sander very soon, but I want to just get a general snip off of this. Now I could just skim through all this, but I really want you folks to see how long it takes to get a direct fit to something that is fully welded together. That should not be snipped at all in most cases. Once that is done, getting my X-Acto knife, gently scraping it to get these parts off here. Have to be really careful because this thing is not as sharp as the clippers. Wow, I almost sliced my finger there. Clippers. But they can still easily go through flesh. So if you are a youngin or someone with very shaky hands, please ask somebody to help you when it comes to the overall snipping process of a miniature. Leaves you out of harm's way and also saves some time. Okay, that pauldron is almost a solid fit. Now I'm going to have to do a lot of sanding after I cut off more here. Now, currently I'm wearing a mask over my face, because when you're working with flying plastics in the air, especially when they're very small, it's best to have something covering your nose so you don't breathe in those particles. It's very bad for your respiratory system. Now, what I'm going to do next is grab my little sander here and get to work. Now, the reason why I want this stronger grit, I forget how much grit this is, but it's a metal sander, so it's pretty strong. It generally helps really sand down all these scrapes and ridges that I have going on here. And helps get something a little more smoother. Rub this on my paper towel under here to help get off whatever is there. Now we get our Pauldron from a Chaos Space Marine kit that I just dropped. Oops, don't want to get rid of that. That's important for later. Alright. Now let's see how this fits. Okay. It's fitting pretty well. It's still a little too wide for how narrow the inside of this plate is. I mean, compared to the other one, it's the same size. It's just the arm itself is a large mold compared to what this needs to actually go through. In other ways, I could have just snipped this whole arm off and then replaced it with a random arm, but it's kind of hard to do that when this whole part here is connected together. So, that'll be a project for later. More snipping. It's still too wide, so we are going to be very, very careful here. Because this is where it's going to get really tricky, since all this is connected. I'm also kind of tempted to just snip off a little guard I have right here. But I'm keeping that there to get a general range of area to see where this is going to be going. Okay. Alright. Here we go, YOLO. If I screw up this whole arm, then I can now just dig through my box and get a new Space Marine arm, because this is stressful as all get out, and I'm not sure if this will look good in the end product. You know what? Yeah, I just use this as a placeholder. I could just snip that all off anyway. Oh god, his arm looks really jacked up. So what happens when you're having a Chaos player and he don't want to play regular Space Marines? He wants to play them Chaos men. Even though technically I'm making a loyalist world leader here. Okay, see, fits much better after getting rid of that whole mess. I just need to sand it down and scrape some more off to get a perfect fit. It's almost there. I could, as I said earlier, skip through all this, but I really want you folks to see this being done in real time and in a step-by-step process. Scrape that off a little bit so you get more of an idea on how this works, and also to see the do's and don'ts. As you see here, don't cut so close to a miniature piece you don't want screwed up. It's still going to be blocked, but we don't want to screw it up because that's going to be where we're connecting our shield. Generally it has a little slot for the other Indomitus shield to go through, but I snipped that off because it wouldn't make the shield fit. Now we sand. Now, the reason why I'm kitbashing this is, as I've joked earlier, is I'm not too much a fan of the regular Space Marines unless they are Black Templar, Carcadons, or whatever, how that's pronounced. Carcadons are little shark Space Marines. Carcharodons, I think. So Shark Space Marines. Then Black Templars, because they're just holy Templaric knights, pretty much, just all black. They're all black. Yeah. There we go. After a few snips, some sanding, and geez, that looks bad there. That's gonna need a... well, it's gonna be covered by a shield. There we are. After that very long process of snipping and sanding, the pauldron fits. Kinda janky, though. Need to fix that. Right there. Right here. Just very gently. There we go. So now we're going to get our plastic glue. I like using Citadel, but other people like using other brands. The other brands I've used, which is plastic cement. It's like this, but a little stronger. It doesn't apply through a tube. And that's kind of one downside with the Citadel glues, is that they use that metal tube. Sometimes it doesn't want to work, and it gets plugged up easily. Just realized I didn't snip this off here. That's interfering with it actually setting. Oh, man. Okay. It's a world eater. They're gonna have battle damage, so it's fine. We're just gonna smother that with the plastic glue and shove this Chaos Space Marine skull shoulder plate on. There we go. That's a nice fit. And with a few fixes here, we can make it look better. That's just part one, though. The longest part of getting a good fit for the shoulder plate. Ooh, excuse me. Some of the stuff kind of went in my nose. Good job, me. Now, generally, after I'm done showing you guys how this kitbash is coming out, I'll paint him in a video. First things first. The building process. Next up, we have this arm right here I resin replicated from a few molds I made of parts for Chaos Space Marines. Because, one, it saves money from buying a bunch of bit boxes, and I use resin for making dies anyway, so I have a large amount on hand. Same with silicone. And also, the kind of resin I use cures in about like 10-15 minutes. And sometimes it has bubbles in parts where I don't want bubbles, but the best part is they're good for kit bashing, because they're on the spot. Most of the time they're fully pieced out, as his arm is right here, which used to hold a chainsword. This is perfect, because this arm is the same kind of size the Indomitus arm is for connecting to the shield. And to connect it, we're going to carefully do a precision glue with super glue here. Now this stuff is very strong and strong acting and dries in like 2 to 3 minutes. So generally when you're working with super glue, this is very important, just like with cutting. If you're a little kiddo or somebody with very shaky hands, you want to make sure you have someone to help you. Because it's very hard to get the super glue off of your fingers, and your fingers kind of stick to everything and even themselves, and when you try to unstick them, it hurts like a pain you could never describe. It's like cutting yourself on paper, but the paper is your skin. And as you see there, I got a little, luckily my hands are super sweaty. Not sweaty, sorry. Wet. So I can have some sort of barrier to get super glue off of my fingers easily. It's kind of the same property if you're messing with epoxy putty. Keep your hands very moist. And there, so far, we have our little World Eater Bladeguard, whatever it's called. Now we're going to put that off to the side. And this to the side as well, because not much needs to be changed. Maybe I can click that right here. This is a tiny corn symbol that came off a corn demon that I had extra parts for it. Actually, no, I want that in the front. So we're going to put that off to the side as well. Now I'm going to be keeping this halo right here, because it matches the World Eater symbol very well. Even has tiny little rivets on the inside. It kind of look like tiny little teeth. So it works. Okay, next up, the chainsword. Because if you're working for corn, you want everything to be shredded up and bloody. You don't want no lame-ass sword. You want yourself a very sharp, not very useful chainsaw. The practicality of these things is actually pretty darn good, but the fact that if you're going to be chainswording up somebody's armor plating, it's going to chip all those teeth, unless they're made out of adamantium or whatever, then it'll go through armor, but it would still chip after a few uses. Practicality aside, I almost dropped my knife over here. That would have been bad. Practicality aside, we are going to be doing a hot little transfer. More kitbashing. Kitbashing, as I said, is for saving money and also just personalizing the miniatures you have bought for yourself even more. What I'm going to be doing here is there is a mold line directly from the hilt of the sword to the right hand, and I'm going to be carefully making a little indent here, so that way when I cut, it'll be a lot easier. I'm just taking this very slowly, because not only do I still want to keep this sword for future uses, but I want to make sure I don't mess up the hand too much. And I should move that clipper there, and I dropped my paint. Awesome. Yeah, let's not do that again. Okay. After a very careful cut, I can just make that sword fly, and it kind of went somewhere. I'll find it later. Never mind, just found it. And to show you there, perfect cut. So the sword is still good of use, and I can use this for a future Space Marine that I can amp up with a cool looking sword instead of whatever lame weapon he has. And that was a very clean cut, actually, now that I look at it. So attaching this little guy is going to be a lot easier now. Same purpose though. I need to have a very straight, smooth cut. This one, on the other hand, is going to be more tricky because it has this weird hilt. So this side has no indent, so it's going to be a clean cut on this side. However, over here, it's where it actually fused together with whatever plastic they use. And it has this other ridge here, so that's going to be pretty tricky. So, just like the other one, we are going up. I am going to very carefully pry my X-Acto knife into the mold lines of this arm hilt, hand hilt, and just very, very carefully and slowly cut it out, while also trying not to cut myself. As you see, we're starting to get this off pretty nicely. On this side, it's completely off. As I said earlier, it has less of the hold and mold lines. So we're going to go under here and cut it, so that way we can meet in the middle. And there we go. Perfect clean cut. Again. That's why we use these, the X-Acto knife instead of plastic shears, because if you use those, you see they're indented on the inside. And only have to sharp it there, so if you were going to cut it, it will actually warp the plastic from where it was cut. It would kind of make it awkward to fit onto anything. But before we apply it to this arm here, I'm going to do a quick little base sanding. Now that that is done, I'll actually be using my super glue because I want this to have a very strong, tight fit. So that way when I'm painting it, nothing breaks apart on accident. So I'm going to put some there. I'm going to put some on the chainsword part here. And this needs to be a very direct fit. And if I just match it with the mold pattern there, with the mold pattern on the chainsword, and align it correctly, it will look fine and not all wonky. Just gotta hold it here for a bit, so that way you can... Yee! So that way it can form and bond. Hold it there for a bit though. This is very stressful because this stuff dries super quick, and once it's dry, it's hard to break off whatever you glued together. Then again, I kind of put a little too much on, so I'm going to let that dry just a little bit, so that way it kind of has this weird coagulated glue form, kind of like if you're using Elmer's glue. It's not super runny, it's not super dry, it's kind of like slime almost. It's a little weird of a description. Okay. Now, it's been a few seconds, we can squash that together. A little lopsided though, let's fix that. This is the stressful part. Okay. Is that a little too far back? Yeah, it is. Just push it up a little bit. There we go. Okay, there we go. Perfect fit. Perfect fit. Chainsword. Perfect for World Eater's Shield Bearer. We ain't no using a lame sword. We're going to use a chainsword. Now this guy here is on a 40mm base, and I'll probably use him as a Chaos Space Marine like Lord or something. Or perhaps like just a proxy Terminator, because it's kind of bulky compared to the other guys, so it could work as one. It's also Chaos, so they don't really care about how things look anyway. Unless if you're some niche. Ugh. Some niche. Weird BDSM demon thingies. Okay, next on our shaving list, we're going to try to remove all these wings here and replace it with a corn symbol. Bam! Well, that corn symbol. We just don't want that there. We want to replace it with a necklace. We'll keep the skull there, so it lines up like that pretty nicely. This part is going to be very, very tricky. So I'm actually using my plastic shears for this part, just to get the overall, like, upper ridges of those wings off. And being very careful of that skull there. I want to save that for later. And I'm also going to be trying to be careful here with these little rivets. Okay, that's one side done. This one's going to be even trickier, because it's right here in everything. To the point where I don't think I can actually get my filer in there. And I want to be careful of that quilla, because I don't want it to be broken off. Should use an X-Acto knife for this part, but the sharpness of this is actually helping out better. And it's smaller tipped as well. Okay. That side's done. Got it down enough where you don't see the wings anymore. You just see the tiny little skull. Alright. Okay, this part, I should be smart and use my X-Acto knife. I'm going to be cutting that off here. Currently I'm cracking up though, because I almost screwed up that skull, and a little bakamatai almost played in my head, which is that little Dami Dane song everyone's memeing right now. It's a really good song. I listened to it a long time ago, but it's nice seeing it getting some love through memes and also people generally just listening to it. And there we are. Fix that up a bit. Now we're just gonna sand. Forgot to wear my mask. Okay, sweet. Now that is taken care of, we can put this on our little Space Marine we threw over here. Alright, for this one though, we'll use our plastic glue. And then we will attach it to the upper part here of the model. Perfect. Oops. There we go. Perfect. So far, he's looking pretty good. Very simple kitbash, but pretty good nonetheless. Now we're going to put some super glue on this little Aquila here, some little shield. And we're going to slap this big corn symbol on it. Even though this guy is covered in skulls and cornate symbols, that would probably make the Astartes be like, wait a minute, this ain't right. It will still be painted up in the good old non-traitor World Eater Legion. The Blood Angels, no, I'm kidding. Nah, it's just the blue and white World Eaters instead of red and bronze. I'll change up the color scheme a little bit to better fit mine, but yeah. So we have that giant corn symbol right there. We're going to take this little corn necklace. We're going to apply that glue right there. And we're going to have it under that tiny little skull I made sure to keep. You can never have too many skulls and corn iconography. Only I can get this on right. Ooh, I got it stuck to my finger. Actually, we're going to remove that. And we will put this over here on the chainsword. On the hand that's holding the chainsword. There we go. Instead of it being one of these little purity symbols, it's a corn symbol. Works great in this occasion. Actually, I think it might be better on the bottom. Yeah, we'll put it down there. Alright. Now that that has been added, we'll touch it up with super glue later. We're going to put that to the side. I'm going to fix that shield a little bit because I moved it on accident. Let's just do a dry fit, make sure all this still fits. Perfect. Perfect. And then for the final piece, I have an extra Chaos Space Marine helmet I took off of a Alpha Legion Space Marine I had, because I gave it a better looking helmet. Now I'll put it on the miniature. It's not a knight helm, but it still shows the aggression in a good old corn dude. And I don't have little horns up here, which is sad. But I'll fix that at some point. This is just me making World Eaters. Bladeguard. And there we are. Everything is done for this little homie. And so we will paint him. I don't know why I keep saying we. I shall be painting him up in a future video. Other than that, fun little kit bash. Hope you folks enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask in the comment section below, or feel free to share your input on kit bashing, or maybe even perhaps to give some ideas on future kit bashes you want to see. Next up will be a little painting showcase of a Legion of the Damned Space Marine chaplain I made earlier, and then I'll probably show off me working on my Minotaur leader for my little squad here.